What is there to see after reality has crushed a man's bones out of conception? And I'm saying this very gracefully, guys, because this is a very special talk. And this talk is titled Next Level Teachers. I'm going to be communicating about how the intelligence of man is changing, and through those changes is recognizing itself in more than just format. And so when you see a consciousness acknowledging itself more than physicality, you must see the ends and beginnings of where man's story of himself is. So when we look at the story of self, we see that we are in a certain relationship where there's a separate element being aware of a greater element. The difference between animals is that their separate element is very differently aware of the greater element. It's not self-aware in the same as us, because that's the lesser species, or let's say, you only have to use the word lesser, even different species are not holding a mirror like the one man is. But for consciousness, the mirror is different, and because there's a transparency into how the experience is. So imagine you having any experience, seeing an imaginative idea or any intuitive imagery that has come to you to be very beautiful. Perhaps the most beautiful things you've seen, regardless of how much you can interpret it or not. And when there's that kind of experience, you see the quality of the experience, and the quality of the experience is the one that is aware of thought, is aware of feeling, and is aware of being. When you're aware of being, words end, but it does not mean you're not aware of words. You go into this emptiness, which is very blissful. And the sense of blissfulness comes because you are seeing how everything is even potentially being able. It's like you being aware more of where your conception process is originating from. And so what that means is that the thoughts in your head are at first to you just a very poetically written, unknown, let's say, mechanism. But eventually you see that when I say teachers, there has always been a student and teacher relationship. So if man can be aware of a greater, immediately the smaller aspects of the cosmos are learning from the greater aspects of the cosmos in the way they can interpret based on the separation they're conceived through. And what that means is that we are because our intelligence exists, we cannot truly see the movement of the cosmos and the dimensions that are beyond color. We confuse it with our immediate reality, because we are like that drowning man trying to grab onto everything he sees. And so there's no need to drown, you simply need to remember why you're standing. And this is a deep question, because this question is taking you back to your earliest memory and even continuing on. It's as if you're suddenly following this idea, and the idea is going beyond you, beyond what you can remember. And so it's leading back to the realm of imagination. And so similar to perhaps how Frodo stepped past borders he hadn't before, you see, when you become aware of your own ideas, you develop them by being a greater observance of whatever you're being within the moment, by being aware of this. So you see, the man who was here really saw what was going on. The other ones were internally somewhere else. And what that means is that see how much life you can see within yourself without language, and you see that language is a beauty that can only be appreciated through the silence. That moment where you're waiting for the singer to sing, that moment after the singer's magnetic performance, electrifying performance, we see that intelligence allows itself to transcend itself. And so the nature of the mind begins being one that is experientially different to you. In other words, you know it's different than how it's being communicated. It's as if when someone tells you this is the truth, you're like, no, because the way I know it is different than the way it's being created right now based on the shapes of the moment. So it is the knowing of a being that illuminates a design. And that knowing is not just from an individual being, it's from a collective presence of how holistically the currents in the ocean were always one. How does the mountain lion growl when it is struck by lightning? When you allow your mind to provide you with what it is aware of naturally, you see that your intelligence does not need to be limited to what you think you understand or what you don't. You see that a lot of problems fade. When we care for life, we cannot ignore it, and so a sense of clarity naturally is cultivated. You attract it. You increasing your understanding of life clears a lot of your confusions, because you cannot be confused anymore once you're aware of it. Once you know where the place is, you can't be lost in it. So you constantly go through these modalities of trying to understand who you are, but at the same time you can't. And so you wonder what human emotion is, and human emotion originates from a thought you can recognize. But are you a thought? Reality finds itself silent just to hear itself. And so when you look at the intelligence of the sun, you cannot ignore natural law. Natural law means that all is real as it is kept real. When you begin seeing that the intelligence that you are is not one limited to form, your inspiration originates constant realities for you until you recognize that infinity can be present consciously in your subtler realms of thought. When you have this concept, you are constantly pulled towards, based on natural law, aligning all that is around you. And so the form is remembering its formlessness, and so in that, a greater intelligence is its own expression. And so we see in the Chronicles of Thought, men speak to keep the voices of other men alive, but at times to add their own as well. You see that all the words that I know as a being are words that have been collected, have been utilized, have been relevant. And so all these irrelevant words in my subconscious are in that sense of unknown, but it is consciously, in a sense, known. You cannot be a magician and not know how your trick works, because there's no magic in a magician who shows how a trick works. And what that means is that many communicators and teachers have found that reality takes man's attention into abstract realms, where those abstractions are created from each person's unique mold. And what that means is you're molded by the hands of life, the hands of the experiences of your past and what you've gone through. And so when man learns that his past is a communication that is kept in his present, he communicates differently. And so you recognize the beauty and the value of a quote by Rumi. You were born with wings, why prefer to crawl through life? And you see, simply, if these were the words this human being left, you recognize that one thing that man needs to be very able to quickly recognize and confront and handle and immediately, in a sense, evolve through is his fixed notions of how he's failing or why he's in a problem, or the very identities of the problematic selves. You see that when man's externality is finding more value in a mechanical approach into understanding itself, you see that it's as if the mirror is ignoring the actual person, but it's just confronting the reflection and just accepting the reflection. And so you don't fight with the mirror, you simply see that if you want to alter, you become the knowing of the person who's not in the reflection. You see the knowing of the person who can always move. And when you can always move, you see that ability was always there, you were just keeping yourself incapable, unable. And it's very important to enable yourself and let some of your most complex designs and patterns of thought and ideas and anything which is just a beautiful creative notion for you. The way you let that manifest, take this as Mr. Within's advice and very graceful communication, is because I've gone through the same thing. And the way you let creativity to express itself and to come out is to see that you do not think about what is creative. You think about what is not creative. You think about nothing and you see that there's everything to work with. And what I'm saying, guys, is that keep your physical life very simple. So what that means, if someone comes and shouts in your face, you're too simple to interpret that in any way. And so you're naturally not simple in an ignorant way. You're pushing off things, you're simple because your attention is to the beauty of the moment of your livelihood. And when you see that you're alive, when you become aware of Mr. Within, there is no Mr. that needs to be there. You are just simply the eternal remembrance of who you are. And so for many, this has been the reality. What I would like to share is that your creativity is a natural thing, and you need to let it be a natural thing, because that is how it would be valuable. And what that means is you see that the greatest innovators of life were those who were struck and hit to points where they allowed life to happen. And through that lesson of realizing that once you go to the bottom, once life punches you in the face and you've hit the curb, it's also given you the greatest opportunity to get up. And you don't take any notions of your past to create any value for the present that could judge you. You simply are present, you navigate comfortably, you're a person and a human being of action in the sense that you know what you're doing. And so if you think that it's smarter to go into something without knowing what you're doing, you will see that only way you can go is if you know without it being shaped. Regardless, there's a knowing. And so do not let yourself be distracted by what you know you are here for. Do not let yourself get distracted by notions of reality or reality conceptions or certain ideas and expectations, and don't have them when you're trying to be able in the present. And what that means is that a creative person doesn't think about creativity because he's too busy just doing something, And regardless, if you begin doing something, you see that the person, if he's not creative but he's constantly acting, he is allowing his mind, and in a sense letting himself realign into a greater sense of knowing himself. So when you have this gentleness, you see that the presence of who you are is peaceful, because it has no reason to be in a battlefield. And so the wars of the mind end the minute there was no mind to fight. The simplicity of your communication implies complexity. And so human beings think that it's okay to be very complex, but they're suddenly seen to be very shallow and simple. And simple has different connotations depending on who you are, but perhaps the best one you could say is that the simplicity I'm talking about is as simple as your breath. That's it. And so if life is as simple as breathing for you, if every task is as simple as breathing for you, you're never bothered. And when I say simple, it doesn't mean you're not putting in effort and you're just lazy. No, it means the intensity of your life is not affecting your state of being. Because the state of being is observant beyond the changes that could break any shape of it. You see that regardless of what I say, regardless of how right or wrong a sentence could be, what is the truth is what we can presently be aware of. Because if you're gone, you don't need to worry about that question. If you're still here and wondering about existential questions of who you are, you must know that the greatest gift, similar to how Mr.Within has learned, is to give your own gift, is to realize that you are the greatest gift. You have not opened this being, this humanity. You have not explored your humanity. And what I mean by that is that one part of you is going to be like, who is this guy telling me this? Get out of here. But a part of me is going to be like, maybe there's a reason this guy's sticking around. Maybe there's a reason this guy's saying it without saying a single word, is because the silence can communicate something noise can't. And you see that you are your own revelation. Your problems, their answers are within you. Your answers, their problems are within you. You do not create confusion by being ignorant to your being. You immediately become aware of who you are by knowing you are aware of who you are, and you just need to be more observant. And what that means is relax. Relax in your existence, into your existence, or not even into, just relax. Be here and breathe. Don't think. That's all I'm saying. That's it. Because once you're here and breathing, and only here and breathing, you're in no other idea. You're in a pure present moment. And so you see that your definitions of who you are as consciousness can no longer just be identified with the body aspect of the moment. It's as if regardless of the mirror and the person looking in the mirror, the whole room captured it all. And you see that greater spaces of nothingness are always kept by other abstracts of infinity. And so what that means is that there is a reason you feel there's nothing, because you are experiencing different focuses on who you are. And as you focus from different points, that means your comparisons are coming with different imagery. So I have remembered myself from what I ate last night, and I also have remembered myself not even being in form, but always being informed. And so you notice that the brilliance of your design is something nobody knows and nobody can truly reveal as well as you can for yourself. You are your own greatest treasure revealer. You are your greatest treasure revealer. You will see that there's a very wise and very educated man, a very actually competent. This guy is a billionaire, and he is also someone who is contributing to our reality very well. So he's playing this game of life as if he's playing it so well as if he's not here to play it. You see? It's like the drive of one man shows you the eternity he belongs to. And Elon Musk said in one of his YouTube talks, I was saying, that the greatest advice that you can get in this reality is to break things into their simpler truths and then see what's happening. And so I'm in a sense, interpreting this and, shortening it for this conversation, but his wisdom was passed on to me very delicately and as simple as perhaps the beauty of a dry leaf moving and making a sound of sound of a scratching secret. It's very beautiful. You see, the poet's mind is one that it never is only the poet's. And so you see that to take something down to its simpler truths means that you receive an idea and you suddenly go back to how much you can see where that idea is coming from. So in other words, you ask, who is there? Or why are we there? So let us take the idea of the human being to its simpler truths. Let's say the next level teachers that we're looking for are ones that are intense existential mirrors found within the present moment. And so your remembrance is simply the structure of how you will simply dissolve into the unstructured when the moment comes, to know? Delusion is putting voices where there's nothing to put a voice in. So what that means is a lot of our fears ignite because our sense of imagination creates a potential of reality which we don't want to acknowledge, but because we don't want to acknowledge it, we're constantly thinking about it. I don't want to acknowledge this, I don't want to acknowledge this. And so the attention of that cannot do anything but to attract it. And you see, complex problems are keeping people distracted when these complex problems have simple answers. And what that simplicity is, that instead of someone else coming and shaking your shoulders and telling you to get up, you shake your shoulders. You wake yourself up by just sitting down and observing and getting to know yourself. And what that means is that when I ask you who you are, it's fine to say, I don't know. But I know some things. And I know that infinity can be kept in a palm, and eternity can be perceived in an hour. If the moment has come, as I have added to that reference. Clarity is your birthright. And what that means is that you have a right to ask the greatest, deepest existential questions, and you have the right of having any method of exploring that. But we give you recommendations that dear beings of all sorts and any path, to have the greatest journey up the mountain is to not look at how others are going up the mountain, is to look at your feet and take mindful and careful steps. And so how that translates now in regards to the context that I'm trying to communicate is that smile, breathe, and go slowly. Be aware. Don't constantly segment your sense of time and space so that you think that you're not going to properly transition into your next change. You are a being of materiality that has an immaterial awareness of itself. And what that means is that don't be bothered by your materiality. Your materiality will be dissolved. Be playful. Be aware. In other words, it's not that I'm telling you stop eating food. I'm just saying the next time you're eating food, instead of just shoving it down your throat or without recognizing, smile, breathe, and very slowly pick up the fork. Feel the weight difference. Feel the design of man at your hand. And look at how you're approaching what is keeping you alive and what is maintaining you. And take a bit of that food and see that your mind has an infinite ability to conceive an idea in such a beautiful form in your own way of remembrance that you are naturally a blissful being that is no longer limited to linearity. You are the observance of both the non-linear and linear. And so yin and yang have recognized their father, which was the moment that allowed them to be present to man's eyes. The next level teachers need to transcend fathers, and what I mean is that we see a great metaphor in life is that man is a father, especially for men, even for women. All beings go through, even people who don't get married or people who never have children will experience moments where they treat children as if they're in those parental and maternal figures. paternal and maternal figures, or roles. And the human mind has an infinite ability to create beauty. And so once you recognize that, you realize the way you maintain yourself by, your problems is not thinking of how can I, get rid of my problems. Oh God, what's the next self-help book? What's the next thing I gotta do? What's the next thing I gotta know? What's the next thing I need? What's the next thing I need to take care of myself? Damn, I need to have discipline. What's the next disciplinary act? What's the next thing I need to reinforce? What's the next thing I need to enhance? And you see that there's this constant search for something you're never finding. And so this is a reality template, the way I'm going to communicate here. So simply acknowledge that, okay, that's a way of seeing life. Now pause that, or in a sense, simply fold that shirt and put it in the closet. And really calmly look at the fact that you're aware of a fact and recognize, regardless of how that fact is shaped, and regardless of what that fact implies, a sense of you is here that cannot be interpreted but is existing and is present. That sense of you does not need words to describe itself or to know itself or to remember itself. It needs immediate involvement through self-awareness and self-reflection, which I am suggesting. This is something where you no longer are thinking of you're no longer thinking of success in this life or victory or, in a sense, abundance as just material abundance. So what that means is, like, after you've had money, you realize, damn, who's giving me this money? And so you go look at the lives of all those people who are giving you what you've got, right? And so after you look at that, you look at greater systems, and your mind begins acknowledging things in ways where the simple metaphors are suddenly invited into greater context. And so the connotations of the words change, because your eyes can no longer remain the same when the definitions of how you are here are broken. When you reach that realm of existential observance where philosophy can no longer be written down, you have walked into the mystic's eyes, where you are an instant of infinite love into the unknown. And so the unknown also is embracing the known, and that is how it is not known. So you see that you have two ways of looking at yourself, and so how you navigate in your reality is based on how that reality is kept present in your projection of what you see. Many people look at the smoke of perhaps Winston Churchill's cigars, but forget how that thought is as swift in its disappearance as that moment in history, because many new moments are coming. And so you see, regardless of what you put your attention on, you're constantly a new creation and co-creation of that moment. What that means is you're the new creation because it's your eyes that are opening the world to you, and your co-creation, it's because you're seeing senses of other that are present in this openness. We want to go to the simplicity of man's being, and we see the way we can go in that simplicity, and also Elon Musk emphasizes, is that after you've taken it to a simpler core, you don't have to always keep it in the abstract. You can bring it in the realm of science, and you can apply it through the scientific template of reality. And so the empty template of reality is actually a template, but it shows you the moment in which an experience of nothing can be present. So those beings who know things that can never tell you don't need to ever tell you. That's it. Because existence is fine where it is. When you leave your bed, you're like, oh, you don't wonder if your bed's gonna be, taken somewhere or something. You know it's there. And so similar to how you can simply and comfortably just know where your home is, imagine having that knowing existentially of the moment. And that is a co-creation. What that means is you see old patterns in new designs. And that beauty is one that cannot keep man blind to himself. Because the light in your eyes is all that is. And so the next level teachers, we will have, or the next advancement of teachers, will be those who dissolved into the teaching. And so we're the pure expressive action and emanation of it. And so you see, the teacher, so what that means is that the material student looks up at the material teacher, but the material teacher, looks at the immaterial student. The immaterial student is the master of all that is, because it does not exist in form. And so you see the qualities of man to take his metaphor and observe it with the beauty of the way he's been raised in this life, and to use that art and create new answers. So what happens is, when I see a problem, I don't sometimes try to see, oh my God, what's the structure, plan, or outline. I let the moment have access to all my memories, and so in an instant I already know, because the way I'm accessing my memory and all my thinking structures is all done in a moment. So what I mean is that a lot of smart people think, okay, I have practiced, I've read, and I've studied all these different ways of contemplation and design and structure, but they're not realizing that if they were aware of all of these things in an instant of conception, rather than one segmented through space and time, externalized, internally you are all that you need to be. Externally, you're all that you can be. Much blessings. And never doubt yourself, guys, because I am not talking to incapable people. I am talking to a knowing where I am planning on how I want the world to evolve in perhaps 4,000 years. And you know how I'm planning? By not planning, by completely being present in my moment and realizing that life has shaped me in a way to look at things in a certain way, to then be able to act in a way where I let the inspiration of the cosmos be present through my breath. And so your livelihood and you being alive gets a value that can never be judged, because it can never be verbalized. You know it. You know yourself. You know yourself just as you know your breathing, and be comfortable in your breath. Know if there's any elusive reality. Know if there's anything that is bothering you. It is something that is external, and in the external is temporal, and so the temporal shifts in infinite change. And so do not worry about the oven that you feel you've turned on and the food that you're going to burn. Simply turn off the oven and be normal. And that's what I'm saying. Maintain yourself by knowing the level of your maintenance clearly, by seeing it so pure that you cannot be even distracted. It will come to you as beautiful as perhaps the wind. That blows that scratching leaf.